share with you, and he said, "Don't worry, Greg, just tell them I'm the other Donnie from south of the border, and everybody will be happy that it's me." So, without further ado, Donnie Eppley from Iowa.
Check 1, 2. Got it. Okay, thank you. All right, good afternoon. Looks like we've lost half the room. They saw Debbie and they exited, so that's fine. I'm here to talk about characteristics of a good high school official and knowing when it's time to retire. I think I have a pretty good handle on it because of the fact I do a lot of assigning at all levels. I assign recreation basketball, where I have about 300 basketball officials that actually work for me. At the high school level, I've got another 265 with 42 high schools. And then at the collegiate level, at the Division III level, I have 4 conferences, 35 schools, and about 227 basketball officials. So try to manage that in addition to what I manage in Mr. Lopes and the Idaho side with about 16,000 basketball officials. Dealing directly with the interpreters and the secretaries is a tough chore. People ask me all the time, they say, "When do you sleep?" I said, "I really don't, because my understanding is you can sleep when you're dead." So hopefully that's not coming up too soon. But get into some of the characteristics of good high school basketball officials, what I think it takes as I travel around. We have 5 schools in the summertime. In addition, I have 2 tryout camps and 10 others that I'm invited to go watch basketball officials. And normally, I can watch a game for about 5 minutes and I can decide whether that official's got it or he doesn't. You know what I mean? I think it's fairly simple. If I'm interested, then I hang around a little bit longer. And then if I'm really interested, I'll talk to them, see how they pan out. So this year I hired 27 new officials. I'm like the breakthrough into college basketball. So in the States, we don't go directly from high school to maybe the university Division I level. We've got a process. You either go Division II, Division III, and then into Division I. It's real rare for somebody to go directly from high school to the Division I level. And it's even rarer if you get the chance to stay, because you've got to have that experience level of dealing with the coaches. Characteristic, a feature or quality belonging typically to a person, place, or thing and serving to identify it. So what I'm going to do is run through some characteristics that I feel are important to being good high school basketball officials. And, you know, like I said, I'm dealing with a lot of those officials, and we try to identify those to move on to the next level. So characteristics, 1, being dedicated. You know, are they dedicated to what we're trying to do with the game of basketball? Are they just out there trying to make money? One of the things that I tell them in my initial briefing when we talk to young officials or prospects when they come to our course is that if you need a weekly paycheck, you probably need to go to McDonald's. Because depending on your dedication and how much effort you put into it, you might not, you know, you're not going to be able to sustain yourself off of what we do. You have to be a good listener. It was mentioned earlier today, 2 ears and 1 mouth. You know, if you pay attention to what's told and you implement that as a basketball official, I think that you can be successful. You have to have a great attitude. If you come in and you don't have a good attitude, you know, one of my things that I think this made me fairly successful is I try to stay away from negative people. So if you're negative, you're probably not one of the people that I'm hanging out with. So I hang around with a lot of people with positive attitudes, and they have you know, great people to be with. Good mechanics. The mechanics, when we go to camps and different things, one of the first things we do is go through the signals. Signals and mechanics, where to stand, where you need to be when you transition from lead to trail. You know, you need to get your arms straight up in the air. That's, you know, one of the emphasis on the men's side, at least at the college level. I know the women have gotten away from it, but since J.D. Collins has become the national coordinator of the NCAA men's, you know, he's gotten back to when we have a foul, you need to stop the clock. Or if you've got a violation, you need to stop the clock. And if you can't, then you won't make it to the tournament. And if you get in the tournament, you won't advance. So this year they actually put it in the CCA mechanics manual that it's mandatory that you stop the clock. So if you're watching games on TV, guys are not stopping the clock, they're probably not going to go very far. But as I'm going around and I'm looking at officials at camps, you know, one of the big things is during the course of a camp, situation is going to present itself. I mean, you can go years and maybe a rule doesn't crop up, so you don't know whether you're not testing their rules knowledge in camps, but you are checking out their mechanics and their signals. So that's one of the biggest things that I'm looking for as I'm going around looking for basketball officials. Your demeanor, calm, you're smooth on the surface. You could be like that duck on the water. He's looking smooth, gliding across there, and underneath the water, his legs are just paddling, going as fast as they can go. So your calm demeanor as a basketball official is a great characteristic. Impeccable rules knowledge. Every year we have to take tests. We have the IVO test, the NCAA, we have tests we have to test out. And if you don't take the test, or you don't pass the test, at least on my collegiate side, you don't work that season. So last year we had a basketball official, he had about 20 games, and the test period closed like November 8th at 11:59. And then I go in the next day and I check to see who hasn't taken the test, and he was the only one for the year that didn't take the test. So he had about 17 games, and I went in and I had to reassign every game. And then he realized what happened, and he calls me. He says, Donnie, I was so busy, believe it or not, this guy's a lawyer. He says, I was so busy helping other people take the test, I didn't take it myself. You know what I mean? Oh well, so he's taking the year off. Good guy, IVO interpreter, just didn't work. So, the standard applies to everybody. Good communicator, key characteristic, especially, I think if you're going to be successful at the collegiate level, even at the high school level, you have to be a good communicator. When I first started, and I started a long time ago, I actually was officiating in Germany and officiated some FIBA basketball as a Schiedsrichter for the Germans. So I didn't speak German, and I guess the FIBA language is still English and French, if you know the international competitions. So most times, and I've had the fortune of officiating a couple of FIBA tournaments, the Albert Schweitzer in Germany, and also on the French Riviera. And not being able to speak French or Russian or any of those other languages, the language of the game is your signals. So we didn't communicate a whole lot. So my first several years, other than working some high school basketballs, we didn't communicate with coaches. So that was one of the biggest things that I had to overcome when I came back to the United States and started officiating high school and college basketball, was to be able to communicate. When I became a supervisor, I had a coach that was a real PIA. Hopefully you know what that is, pain in the you-know-what. And he would call me after every game, and he would complain about the officials. And he recently got a job. He moved from Division II to Division III, and when he left, I called and I thanked him because I was talking to a coach and we were able to communicate back and forth. And I think that's really helped enhance my career to be able to help to, speak to the college coaches, when I'm officiating the game. So I think it's helped me make myself successful. You have to be fair. You have to be fair to both teams. You can't go into a game with a preconceived notion about who's going to win. So you never know what's going to happen. If a rule occurs, we had a situation in Germany a couple of years ago where team was 17-0 going into the DOS final, Department of Defense School System final, and they were playing a team that was also very good. And prior to the game, one of the players, he dunked the basketball. So in high school basketball, it's indirect to the head coach, and now they have to sit down. So what happened was, we were playing in a big arena, and the chairs on the sideline were about maybe 15 feet from the sideline. So you can imagine the sideline, 15 feet. Now, if you have a coaching box, that really doesn't matter because you can get up and move close to the sideline. At that time, we had the smaller coaching box, 6 feet, and you could get up and you could coach your team. Well, this coach, he had to sit down. That put him at a distinct disadvantage because of the fact the arena was filled, and now his team couldn't hear him bark instructions. And he wanted to move the chairs closer to the sideline. And we didn't allow him to do that. So that's the way the arena was set up all year when we played games, and he had to stay back. So it would have been unfair, it would have given them, an unfair advantage to move it forward. Even though he had to sit down, he would have been still able to communicate with his team. So unfortunately, they lost. You have to be consistent. One of the biggest things And we'll get into a little bit of game management as a characteristic later. But one of the biggest things is just be consistent in your application of rules, your application of mechanics. There's nothing worse than, one time down the court, ball goes across the basket line, you rotate. Next time down the court, ball goes across the basket line, you don't rotate. You're not being consistent. So your crew really doesn't know what's going on. So you have to be consistent with your mechanics. When you're reporting fouls to the table, I think you do the same thing every time. The table gets used to you. Your rules applications all the way through. Professional, I think you have to be totally professional at all times. That's a key characteristic. So even, I've got a lot of friends, they think they're my friends, so, they'll send me text, maybe email messages, but, hopefully they're all professional when they're dealing, with me, and when we're dealing with coaches, we need to be professional. I know Debbie mentioned about sit down and shut up. That's one thing that I don't tolerate as a supervisor. I would never say that as an official to a coach, and I don't expect my officials to treat my coaches, like that. The last one on this slide is integrity. That's really who we are. Right now, we've got a big scandal going on in the U.S. I'm sure you've seen it on the TV and in the papers. Talking about college basketball. So, we as officials, I know the coaches say they're the guardians of the game, but actually we're really the guardians of the game because without our integrity as officials, we have nothing. Some additional characteristics, you have to be a good play caller. I mentioned mechanics earlier. Mechanics can get you there, but your play caller's got to keep you there. You can't consistently miss rules, miss plays, block charge plays. The games are so different, even at the high school level, the college men's level, and the college women's. The games are like 3 separate games now. And then, the NBA being a whole different entertainment level. So, it's just the play caller comes into effect. Humility, you have to be humble. You have to remember where you came from as a basketball official, where you started, and regardless of what level you rise to, you have to remember your beginnings. Composure, how you maintain yourself on the basketball court. Don't get flustered. Something happens. There's a technical foul situation. Tommy mentioned about going to the other end of the court when you should have went to the other end. We need to help each other with that so we can maintain our composure. If a coach is irate, how do you give a technical foul? You don't go over and blast it in their face. A lot of times, you give a technical foul, report it to the table, they don't even know they've got a technical foul until the announcer mentions it. Patience, big thing with basketball officials. We have a lot of basketball officials in the United States that are very impatient. All right? They want to get to the next level as quick as they can get there because, as Debbie mentioned, $3,000 a game is a lot of money. We start at the high school level, about $80 for a varsity game. Division 2 and 3, you're talking anywhere from maybe $180 to $300. But at the Division 1 level, probably about $1,000 to $3,500, per game. And people see that, and they want to get there as fast as they can. I have a very good friend who, great look, 6'5", he was about 250 at the time, but real muscular, good shape. And he elevated through the ranks very fast, only to find out that he didn't know what a foul was. So he got knocked out, all right? And after about probably $15,000, that's how much it costs to go to camp for about 10 years, he's finally working his way back in. So you have to be patient because you don't want to get there too soon, be identified because you get knocked out. Unless you have the perseverance and persistence to get back in it, it's probably over for you. You have to have a little bit of humor. I'm not a humorous guy. We have many, like I'm sure when Tommy was officiating, he was able to get away with a little bit of humor with coaches. If I say something that might be humorous, coach might not think it's humorous, then I get myself in trouble. I had a situation last weekend. I was working, matter of fact, this past Monday night, just to try to get out and run, since I hadn't ran since the end of last season. Get out and officiate a basketball game in the church league. And had a situation where former player at East Carolina, about 6'10", now coaching a high school team. And we had an incident, I supervised a high school, so we had an incident last year where one of my officials made an incorrect call, and then as transitioned out the court, he tells me you got to sit down and stay in the box, and we go down the other end, he gets technical foul. It's a whole big situation. So I dealt with that as the supervisor, you know, and basically told him that we had screwed up, you know, meaning the call was incorrect, he was handled unprofessionally, that it wouldn't happen again. So he doesn't know me from Adam, and we've got 2 rec league games going on in a church. They're running side by side, and I figured I would go over and officiate the game that he was involved with. So we go up and down, and we have a play, and I'm the center official opposite, and the church situation is a little screwed up because the table's on one side and the benches are on the other. You know how rec leagues are, you gotta adapt. And you know, I'm the center official, and I'm in front of his bench where he's coaching. He's also playing, by the way. And there's a play that's over in front of the lead, opposite where I'm at, and there's a foul and a rebound. Well, my partner doesn't call it, and I didn't go get it either. And I didn't want to go get it because I didn't want him to think I was big time at him and calling in his area. You know what I mean? So, and I didn't want him to get flustered, so we played on. And we go back down, and the coach says to me, "Hey, you missed that foul," or "You guys missed that foul," or whatever he said. And I turned around and I looked at him and I said, "Coach, you're right, we missed it." And I thought that was a suitable response. "You're right, we missed it." And it went back and forth, and I listened to him, and what he got out of it was I was being a smartass saying, "Hey, we missed it." Because he's a 25-year-old kid, he didn't know, I'm thinking I'm being just honest, saying, "Hey, we missed it. You're correct." Because you made a statement, he didn't ask me a question. "Did you not think that was a foul?" Then I would have answered it differently. But he said, "You missed that foul." I said, "Coach, you're right, we missed it." So we go back and forth, and it gets to halftime, and he goes over in the corner. And I went over, and I saw him there, and I started speaking to him. And I said, "Coach, I wasn't being a smartass. I'm just being honest with you. We missed the play. You saw the same play that I did. It was opposite where I was at. I said I wasn't going to go get it, but you're correct, we missed the foul." We went back and forth for a few minutes, and I told him, I said, "Coach," I said, "I appreciate what you do as the coach of Red Land High School." I said, "But right now you have no clue who I am. I'm the guy that handled your situation last year with the other official." And then his hand went right down between his legs, you know what I mean? Because it was just an interesting interaction with the coach, because he didn't know who I was, and I was being honest with him, and he thought that I was being a smart-ass official. So, you know, sometimes the humor works, sometimes it doesn't. I wasn't trying to be humorous at all, but, you know, he just didn't get it. Accountability. I think as a basketball official, you have to be accountable. And, you know, Debbie talked about maintaining calendars when you're dealing with supervisors. That's huge with me. And, you know, you've got to, well, especially on the Division III level. I've got 4 conferences on the Division III side. We've got 4 additional signers on the Division III side, plus another 2. So we're talking about 6 to 8 people that we're dealing with when we're dealing with officials. So, you know, you've got to be your own game manager as far as assignments go. Keep your calendars up to date. So when I'm trying to give you games, you know, I'm not getting them back. And that's why I try to wait. I mean, our season starts the beginning of November. I'm just now, all the schedules have been in, but I'm just now putting the assignments out to the officials. And I do it one by one all the way through. So I deal with 227 officials. I make 227 schedules. It takes me about probably 10 to 15 minutes to make a schedule for an official as we work through that. But you have to be accountable for everything that you do. Your demeanor, how you carry yourself. Game management, Tommy talked about it before. You know, I think that we don't really talk like, you know, before Peter Webb. I mean, everybody knows Peter Webb is in here probably, but, you know, like that was a taboo subject. We didn't talk about game management with Peter, but, you know, I think the game manages itself, really. I mean, if you go out there and you do what you're supposed to do, from the time that you have the coaches and captains meeting and until the game starts. We've got the initial jump ball, and then you rule fouls and violations correctly to the best of your ability. I think the game manages itself, all the way through. Good judgment. Once you get there, good judgment will help you stay there, at the level that you're going to appreciate. And you have to be respectful. Talked a little bit about poise before. Some more characteristics. Tommy talked about the good partner side today. You have to be mentally fit. Obviously, at the high school level, we're dealing mostly with high school teachers in the United States. They're, supplement their income later in the evening as being a coach, making an additional couple $1,000s. But at the collegiate level, even at the Division III level that I supervise, that's how they feed their family. And that's what I have to tell my officials. So our officials, for the most, we don't have, I would say, even at the collegiate Division I level, we might have less than 30 full-time basketball officials. Not like the NBA where they have 60 and those guys are full-time, that's their job. Most of our collegiate basketball officials have some type of vocation where they have to be there 8 to 5 or they're supervising. They might not have to be there, but they're in constant communication with what's going on at their work, and different things like that. But the point I'm trying to make is that our coaches, that's how they feed their family. And when I have my meeting next week with my officials, they have to understand that you go to work from 8 to 5, and if you have a problem at work, or you get stuck in traffic, or your wife called and she said that there's an issue at home, or you're not supposed to come home tonight, you need to leave that at the door when you enter the arena. Because my coaches, for that 2.5 hours that you're going to do that game, they demand your full attention because that's how they feed their family. If you can't do that, then you probably need to give the game back. So you have to be mentally fit. You have to hustle. Nothing bothers me worse when I'm watching video and I've got 3 officials and we've got a play that's occurring in the front court and I see 10 players and 2 officials. It's always, where's the trail? And one of the things that, one of our mechanics is to sprint from the end line to the 28-foot line, and if you're the trail, go from the 28-foot line to the end line. So we should always have 3 officials. So we have those key starting points that they put in last year for the, and I try to emphasize that even at the high school levels to get to that key starting point, and then you can move from there. Be punctual. Nothing worse than being late. So on the high school side, what I do is if I have time, and if you're going to be late, and I have another official available. Right now, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of officials in the United States. You've probably read online or seen in newspapers that we've got a severe shortage of basketball officials in the United States. I was talking to somebody earlier about they had 100 and some odd officials, at a prospective tryout or prospective officials here, maybe in Toronto, and they were going to take 40 of them. I'd take all of them. And we would try to figure out how to make them basketball officials. So, like if you're a warm body and you come in the door, we're going to work with you to the best of our ability to make sure that you can be a basketball official. So, because without us, the game can't be played. And we've got guys and girls running all over. We've got 3:45 games in the afternoon. And when that game's over, which normally lasts an hour, hour and 15 minutes, it's over at 5, they're en route somewhere else. Whether it's to do a rec league game that starts at 6, JV game that starts at 6:15, or maybe even a varsity game that starts at 7:30. So we've got, a number of officials that are doubling up just to make sure that we have enough officials to cover games. I always tell them, like, if we have snow and they've got to cancel a game on the weekday, don't move it to Saturday. Because Saturday is when all our Catholic youth programs play and all our colleges are playing, so you'd be lucky to get a warm body on Saturday. But, the punctual part, doesn't matter what it is. We have a meeting. If it starts at 6 o'clock, we want the meeting to start right at 6 o'clock. You have to trust. Tommy talked about trusting your partners. I have to trust you as an individual. Debbie mentioned about, officials wanting to be your best friend. I get more texts from people that think they're my friend, you know what I mean? And they're not, trust me. I have a close group of friends that I actually trust. And those are normally the people that, help me when I'm having a tryout. I'll say, hey, do you think that guy can officiate? And then I'll sit down for a few minutes to see what's going on there. Physically fit, always an issue. And that's one of the biggest things, are you able to pass the eye test as a basketball official? So at the high school level, like I said, we're looking for warm bodies, but like if you're trying to get to the collegiate level, you've got to be physically fit, because if you're not, when you walk into the gym and the coach sees that you're 20 or 30 pounds overweight, then you're in the doghouse from the start. So they have the perception is that you're not going to be able to get in the proper position to make the proper ruling for that game, and that's going to have an effect on the outcome. So my biggest thing is, like, I have to work out just about every day to try to stay in shape, because I like to eat, and I found out last night I really like the bats. But so yeah. So one of the things that I did was I used to go to. Do you have Planet Fitness here in Canada? Yeah, Planet Fitness. So I used to pay the $10 to go to Planet Fitness. So I'd spend an hour there. 50 minutes would be talking, and the last 10 minutes I'd work out. So I ditched that idea, and then I went and I actually invested in a gym called Power Training. It's primarily on the East Coast, but the guy that started the franchise, he's the strength trainer for the Baltimore Ravens, a guy named Steve Saunders. So I was able to open a location. My deal was that my location is about 30 miles from my house. I'm still able to work out at the one that I started working out at. So I now go to Power Train every day and work out, which is a great deal for me. So, but that's how I try to stay as physically fit as possible. Organization. You have to have good organization skills. That goes back to maintaining your calendar, setting up your travel, things like that. On the collegiate side, when we're traveling all over the United States, the flights, the rental cars, the hotels, everything, if it's not in order, and it's tough to do it on game day to try to make sure that everything's done. So when the schedules came out 2 weeks ago, I sat down one night and I just booked all my flights in one night for that particular year. So trying to get organized, and then make sure that I copy my wife on my calendar so she knows where I'm at. Normally, because once I leave on November 1st, it's probably about March 29th that I get back. So try to see her 4 days at Christmas. Loyalty. This is big for me. Not on the high school side, it's okay, but like on the collegiate side, whoever gave you your first shot, you want to be loyal to that person. And then some guys sell their soul to the highest bidder. So, when you're talking about officials that work, whether it's the Big 12, the ACC, the Pac-12, this guy, they're paying $3,600, they're paying $3,500. So the guy at $3,500, he gave me my first shot, but now they're paying another $100, so I'm going to jump ship and go with him. And the loyalty factor plays big, because the guy says, okay, well, you're going to leave me, then a lot of times they just cut you loose, and then you have to go there, and hopefully you're able to stick in that league, So loyalty, I know the officials that are loyal to me, they tell me if there's an issue in a game, they'll tell me, that way I can be proactive as a supervisor and contact the coach and say, hey, we messed up this play. Say, well, how'd you find out about that? Because the referee called, he was honest, he was truthful with me, and that's part of the loyalty factor that, you're telling me what I need to know, I'll be loyal back to you. And exudes confidence. When you go out there, we always equate to officiating, when you blow the whistle, it's like being an actor on stage. When you're on Broadway, you're in Hollywood, but all eyes, whether it's 20 eyes or whether it's 40,000 eyes, they focus on you when you blow the whistle. So when you sound the whistle, if you crumble, then you're not really exuding confidence, and you're going to have issues in the game, because that's when the coaches, they like to jump on you. You have to have a passion for the game. When you lose the passion, it's really time to get out. So, like I said, if you're just in it for the money, that's always an issue. You have to be courteous. I find, being polite, respectful throughout the course of the game. Your appearance, that goes along with the physically fit. Sometimes, when we go to these tryouts, we have guys that their hair doesn't look like Peter's here, but you got the little spikes going on. I mean, they'll have hair going everywhere. You know what I mean? I say try some hairspray. I think you have to be honest with people. Just to tell them, either you're overweight, your hair doesn't fit. Sometimes they just look goofy. But, try to work with them. You have to have a little bit of common sense. We had an issue in Pennsylvania this past week where there was a soccer game, and one of the players, this is a junior high soccer game, had on religious headgear. And you probably deal with that up here. The National Federation came out with change this year on the, wearing the religious headgear. It's just got to be approved by the state. And normally it's a rubber stamp, but these officials in the soccer game, they actually made a ruling where they weren't going to allow the player to play, which is really crazy. So you got to use common sense when dealing with those situations. I'd rather say, as long as it's not harmful and not going to hurt somebody, let them play and then ask for forgiveness later. I think if you use that approach, you'll be better. Approachable. You can't be standoffish. If you are, coaches are going to hate you. And you got to be dedicated. You got to be dedicated to the craft. If you're not dedicated, like I said, it goes along with probably time to get out. And that leads us into knowing when it's time. It's not 10 after 10 either. When the challenges of officiating outweigh the benefits of participating. When it's more challenging than the benefit you're getting out of it, it's not worth it. When you choose not to make it to half court for most of the game. I had a situation, you think it's funny, but I had a situation 2 years ago. I had a tryout camp, and I was going to hire this young basketball official to work on my Division III staff. And he had came to the tryout. About 2 weeks later, I was out at a gym, and I was observing some recreation games, just walking through. And he happened to be, we have this facility, it's phenomenal. It's got like 30 courts. It's called Spooky Nook. But on the back courts, I had walked back there, just happenstance to go back there. And I see this official, and he's walking back and forth. And he's like just getting to the 28-foot line, not even the half court. And he would walk back to the end line, and he was walking back to the 28-foot line. And he never came across half court. And I actually planned to hire this kid. And I'm looking, I'm like, I'm not hiring him. So I contacted one of his mentors, and I said, hey, this guy did a great job at camp. Unfortunately, he's going to have to wait a year. I'm going to have to come back. Because what I just saw actually perturbs me, you know what I mean? And I said, I want you to get the message to him. So he came back a year later, and I used him as an example. In the class, I actually spoke to him about it. I said, hey, I thought you were good at it. You ranked out #1. But you have to treat every game equal, because the game is important to somebody, no matter what level it is. Whether it's a 3rd and 4th grade girls game, 6th, 7th boys, or whether it's a college game. That game's important to somebody. So, when you choose not to make it to half court, it's time to go. If you have an injury or your family needs, I understand family. Big thing. You call me tonight and you say, hey, I got a problem at home. I need to be replaced. I don't ask any questions. That's one thing that I found out as being an assigner or supervisor or coordinator, whatever term you want to use. Like, I feel like I'm also somebody's personal counselor. You know what I mean? Because everybody's, they get an issue at home or something happens at work. Like, I'm the first one that calls. Tell your wife. Don't tell me first. I don't need to know that. Just tell me you got an issue, and then I'll take care of it. I can find somebody else to go work. We have a lot of people, at least on the college side, that will work. When you start to complain about your schedule, no whining, all right? So when your schedule gets to the point that you're not happy with it, it's time to go. If you're not a little nervous and excited to officiate to get today's game, I find that every time that I go out, with the exception of last week when I went to the Christian game, you get a little excited, you know what I mean? You get a little nervous when you go on the sideline, because it's a big game. Every game is a big game. That game's important to somebody. It doesn't matter whether it's Little Sisters of the Poor, playing at Michigan State. You never know. I mean, with today's college basketball and the parity, you never know when that big upset's going to take place. If you've lost the enthusiasm and it's no longer fun, it's time to go. So if it's not fun, when you get in the car, you say, oh, I really want to make this 2-hour drive. I've got to go to, you know, wherever you go up here. If I got to drive from here to Ottawa, what's that, about 6 hours? Yep. So when you get in the car, if you're dreaded from the time you get in the car that it's no longer fun, then I think it's time to get out. And I think the number one reason, anybody figure that out? Mind says go and your body says no. All right? And that reminds me, I mean, like when I'm out this past week, I told Tommy I was out walking like 4 miles every day, and I go over to this little Division III college, and the football players are out there. And I can remember when I played football. I see them out there doing the drills. I'm like, I'd love to do that. I think I can still do that. I go out there when nobody else is looking, and I go about 5 yards. I'm like, no, that's not going to work for me. So, I mean, my mind says I can still do it. But my body, I'd rather save the steps for the basketball game. And when you're no longer able to keep up with the pace of play, that ties in with your body. All right? Any questions?
Yes, Donnie.
Yes.
Do you have evaluators that you use to make sure all these components are here?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I use, on the high school side, we use some retired high school basketball officials. And that's one of the things here in the next slide, you know, assist with evaluations when you're done. So, like, you don't really need to, like Devin's talking about staying involved with the game. You don't really need to step away. There's other ways that you can stay involved, whether it's assist with evaluations, videotaping, or mentoring. I mean, you can stay at home and stay involved in the game. We have phenomenal programs in the United States. One is called Huddle, H-U-D-L. The other one's called Synergy, where you can watch, whether it's a high school game or every college basketball game that's being played is on Synergy. So we give access to, you know, our observers. They're able to watch the games from home, or we get them a pass and they can go watch. But I have about 5 on the Division III side that are retired officials that actually go out and observe for me. Any other questions? Yes?
What do you think an official should make the announcement at the end of the season or before the season? Different guys have different ways of wanting to be.
Right. That's interesting. You know, I have to applaud Danny Crawford. I mean, he's an NBA official, and he went through the entire season last year, and nobody had any idea, based on his fitness level, he's running well, play calling is great. Matter of fact, he might even work the finals, right? And at the end of the year, he said, I'm done. Versus, we have officials, and it's at all levels, even at the Division I level and the NBA level, they say, okay, I'm going to retire in 2 years. So get my rocking chair ready, or whatever you're going to give me when I come to your arena, when I'm going to do your last game, you know. And, you know, I think you should just walk away at the end. You know what I mean? Whatever your last game is, I don't think anybody needs to know. I mean, we're not celebrities. And I think we had a meeting this summer, and Jim Delaney, who's the commissioner for the Big Ten, one of the things that he wants to do is he's trying to do away with the superstar officials. You know, at the collegiate level. You know, when they were, well, I didn't mention any names, but, you know, some of them are gone, you know what I mean? But, like Jim Burr, I mean, the guy was a celebrity. Timmy Higgins, he was a celebrity. Coach was a celebrity in his own right when they walked in, you know what I mean? And it's almost like they were bigger than the game. You know what I mean? They weren't, but the perception was from the media. I mean, we have one right now. I mean, he's like a rock star, which is great. I mean, and he's a great guy, Gene Steratore. NFL referee 114. I mean, when he goes to a game, I mean, we officiated a game last year at Youngstown State. Before the game, I bet there was 20 families came out and wanted to take pictures with Gene Steratore. I'm like, I'm down here, I'm like chopped liver. Nobody wants to take my picture with me, but that's fine. I mean, and he's got a great personality. I mean, Gene would give the shirt off his back. Just a great partner, great person. But I mean, you know, they're trying to just. You go in and do your job. I think the greatest compliment as a basketball official is when you can go officiate a game and they don't know who you are and they don't remember you. Several years ago, we were at the Final Four, and I think it was in San Antonio, my wife and I it was about 11:30 at night. We got into an elevator, and we got into the elevator with Bill Self and his wife. And I introduced myself to Coach Self, and I said to him, I said, "Coach, how you doing?" And I told him my name, and he had no idea. Like 3 weeks prior, I had just done his first round game when they had played Eastern Kentucky. It was a very good basketball game. And, I told him, I said, I just officiated your game. And he was like, it was amazing. It was a good interaction. Then after we got off the elevator and I was talking to my wife, I said, the difference between me and Coach Self is about $8,999,000 and some odd change. That guy, he's got to be worth about $9 million. I'm worth a whole lot less. Yeah, I just think that's one of the things. Any other questions? Yes?
In education and in other areas, there's a second chance program that all some officials need is to be recharged and have a refocus and away they go again. Do you believe in that?
Do I believe officials need a second chance? I think it's a lot easier at the high school level than it is at the college level. Yeah. And prime example, I was on the way, I went to a tryout this summer where guys, they spend $600 to get there. You've got to get a flight. You're probably spending about $1,000 for like a 2.5-day deal. And you go and you try out, and a couple of weeks later, they'll let you know if you've been selected. And on the way back, I was sitting next to my friend that I had flown out with, and he got up and went to the restroom, and like when I opened my eyes, this other guy sitting in the seat. And he asked me, he says, "Hey, what do you think my chances are?" This, that, and the other. I said, "Whatever you do, just do me a favor." I said, "If you don't make it this year, save your money, because it ain't happening." The guy's had he's had a checkered past where he's had some issues, and for whatever reason, they're not hiring him. So it's a lot easier, I think, at the high school level to give somebody a second chance than it is at the collegiate level.
Now, there are people that truly love the game
Mm-hmm.
and no longer function at the high school level, but would be great with the younger people.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to encourage and inspire them to stay with it and work with those kids because of the background.
Totally agree. Yes, I totally agree. Any other? Yes?
Donnie, so a lot of times we're dealing with a lot of people who have distinguished careers, etc. And it's a tough talk. How do you go about doing that talk with those individuals to let them know it's time to step away?
It's not easy, you know what I mean? And, a lot of it's through the use of video and just actually, having a heart-to-heart. One of my best friends, he has a problem with weight, and he's working Division I basketball, and he doesn't fit the mold anymore what they're looking for in Division I basketball. So tried to, in so many words, try to tell him that, hey, you've either got to lose the weight or you're going to come down slowly, you know what I mean? Or it could drop all at one time. So, like he was in 4 leagues, now he's in 2 leagues, and he's trying to lose the weight now. But if it doesn't happen, it's not going to happen. But I think when it's time, guys can't run. I have a good friend that just had a stroke. He had a stroke, and then they had to go in and do some surgery with a little robot, to clean some arteries. I've asked him to be an observer. I think it's probably a good time that, you step away and will you stay involved and be an observer for him. Rather than he's going to try to officiate some high school games, but on the college side, it's not going to work because it's not going to be able to keep up. So, anybody else? Good, thank you.